Happy day 5, friends. So today we are going to be working on our cursive text, and we're still using our same gray, but this time we're going to up our thread count to 4 strands. So go ahead and pull an arm length. You're going to flatten the tip of that until you see the 4 strands, or all 6, and then you can see 4, and you can pull 2 away. Without getting it tangled. There. I was so smooth when I did this the first time, and now I'm struggling. There. Okay, we got it. So I have my 4 strands. I'm going to put that right here. My 2 strands I'm going to save because, again, we're going to want to use this. Now, because we're using 4 strands, we obviously can't just use just the 2 strands. So you have 2 options. You can either pull another arm length, and then when you split that floss and you have 4 and 2, you can combine the 2 2s to make 4. With this small of a word, 2 words, I'm not sure if you'll need that or not. You can do it. It's up to you. But your second option is you could also just fold your 2 strands in half, and then that way you're making 4 strands. So you would fold it in half. You'd end up having, you know, a little loop on one side. You can either tie this into the knot and cut off the excess, or you can just snip it and then tie it. But that's your option for being able to use up all your thread. You really will not run out of the gray, like apparently we struggled with the clouds. But again, it's good practice just to get used to using all your floss and not having a lot of excess. So I've got my 4 strands here. I'm gonna tie it. And we're still using that embroidery needle. And we're going to use a back split stitch for our cursive text. So let's get ready. Okay, so our back split stitch is pretty similar to a back stitch with one little difference. You're going to, when you make your second stitch, you're going to come back into that first stitch or the previous stitch, and you're going to split it. So what you're going to do is you're going to make 1 stitch length, and well, let me rephrase that. It's going to be a little bit bigger, almost like a stitch and a half, because you want to leave enough room to come back and split the floss. So I'm gonna go, I feel like my thread's not pulled all the way through the back. Oh no, it's just extra. Okay, so I'm gonna go right to about here. You can see that where I'm at. I'm gonna pull it down. Now I'm gonna go up about half a stitch length forward. And then I'm gonna then bring it down right in the middle of this previous stitch. So right in the middle of it, because you're gonna split it. And this stitch does help create a really nice curve, which is why I really like to use it for cursive especially. So I'm going about half a stitch length forward. I'm going to come halfway into the previous stitch, pull it down. And there's no exact science to this. If you feel, especially on some of the curves where the stitches are going to be a little tighter, if you feel like you're not necessarily coming right halfway in the stitch, that's fine. It does not have to be exact every time. As long as you are going into the previous stitch, the look will stay the same, as long as the difference isn't super drastic. So in these spots where the lines are a little bit longer and there's less curves, I do like to make a slightly longer stitch as opposed to the, I can't really see where I'm pointing, the tighter spaces that have curves in them. Okay, now let me let me zoom the camera in just a little bit more, see if you can see even better. I know it is a little bit harder with the gray thread on a gray line. And I even sometimes when I make stitches, I can sometimes, when I get ready to go down in the middle, I will kind of pull my thread a little bit to the left to try and help create a little bit more of a curve. So I'm not going straight down, but I'm kind of like putting my needle right there at the tip, and then I'm kind of like yanking it a little. And this is especially helpful when you might have accidentally gone too far in a stitch and it looks a little too straight versus blending together, which this last stitch I did kind of looks a little bit like that. So I'm going to just kind of go in the middle of it, but kind of tug it down before I like pin it in its spot. My daughter and her pencil sharpener. I was really surprised the first time I was recording and I heard that in the playback. I was like, oh wow, that is really loud. Okay, and in these spots where we're going to be crossing over each other, just keep going as normal, keep following the lines, and then I'll show you what will happen once we come back over this line. And I like to use the 4 strands here to help make it a little bit thicker so that the words stand out a little bit more. If you've noticed, the fewer strands you have, the thinner your stitch will look. The more strands you have, the thicker it will look. Okay, so we're getting ready to come up on kind of a tight curve, so the stitches are going to get a little bit smaller and a little bit closer together. And if you do see a little bit of your line underneath, like your pin marks, don't worry too much about that because they are going away. As long as you feel like the stitch looks right, then you can leave it and not correct it. And sometimes a stitch will look a little funny. You're like, I don't know if that's going to look right. And you have to do 1 or 2 more stitches forward in order to see how the split stitch is going to end up looking. Okay, so here I'm getting a little close to that line that I need to cross over. And so I'm going to make this stitch. And there's a little bit of a gap there, but that's not where I want to stitch. I'm going to actually come down here and go over the whole thing, cross it like a little bridge. And then spots like, man, I keep poking myself at the bottom because I tend to keep my finger like kind of like here on the other side to kind of hold my back, so I keep poking myself. Okay, here at the bottom of this H, I'm gonna make one last stitch going up kind of into that little bridge area. And because it's such a sharp curve up for the rest of the H, I'm going to not really do a back split stitch. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to kind of tuck under just a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of scoot my needle in here just a little bit. So I'm not necessarily right on top of it, but I'm kind of scooting under just a tad. And then I'm going to just keep going with the back split stitch like normal. And that's only necessary where there's spots where there's a really sharp curve and it's not, or not even a curve, it's just a sharp line, and it's not a curve. Okay, I'm going to get to the end of this H, and then we will fast forward through the rest of it. And a little tip about the dot and the I, you can do one of two things. You can either do a single twist French knot, or you could just do a little back stitch and come up and go down just a little bit forward. I go back and forth between which ones I like more. Sometimes I like the French knot a little more. Sometimes I just do a back stitch. Okay, so the rest of this I'm just going to fast forward, and then I'll come back at the end to give you just a few little other tidbits. Okay, friends, that is the end of day 5. So thank you for sticking along with the text. We have one more day of text. We have our reference, and we're going to be working on the windows tomorrow. If you don't get your text done today or tomorrow, because tomorrow's a pretty light day, don't worry, you always have the weekend to catch up. From here on out, I would say things are pretty slow. I say that and then probably watch it be a little overwhelming, but I don't think it will be. I think it'll be slow for y'all, and I think it'll be good, and I think it'll be easy to catch up if this was a little overwhelming. So I'm looking forward to seeing your progress. Be sure to share photos in the Facebook group, and good luck.